Hi, this is Roger with Whittle Bit at a Time. This is Crystal Dragon Stand Part 2. Yesterday we left off where this was, I got this in here, I got a stand here. Eventually I'll stable that up a little bit more. But today's part of the project is we are going to start carving the recess here in this block of wood that is going to sit into this block of wood. And then the dragon stand is going to stand up there. So let's see how that's going to work. First thing I'm going to need to do is start scoring around the outline. So when I get the chisels in here, it's not going to cut into it. I've got two outlines here, and I actually need to take the outer outline here. Now, yesterday you saw me doing it on the base with a chisel, because I didn't want any tear outs. I really don't want any tear outs on this. But if I get them, I get them. But this is just easier and faster on this larger area to do it with a really good sharp knife, which comes, by the way, from Beckwith Forge. He's on Instagram. He makes so many knives and then puts them up for auction or sale on Instagram. They go really quick, so you're really fortunate if you own one of his beautiful knives. The crystal came from KE Crystal Communities, and she is on Facebook. And the reason that we're making the stand is that the base of the crystal is a little wobbly and won't sit flat, and you don't want something like that falling and breaking. She did not feel right trying to sell it for the full retail value of $220, as you can see there on the tags underneath there. And we bought it on a sale deal that she had. It was deal or no deal. We got it for under $100 because she's a very fair person, offering great crystal qualities and wants to make people happy. She does drops or live sales 2 to 3 nights a week, just depends on what she's got going on and how she's feeling. But they are a lot of fun. And it's basically first claim, first serve. Sometimes she's got duplicates of stuff. Sometimes she doesn't, but it's a lot of fun to get on there and watch her display her crystals and talk about them a little bit. She's not into what each crystal does as far as the powers or whatever it's supposed to have. She's not into that. She just likes pretty things. So this is pretty boring, trying to get out this part. I think I need to get a bigger scoop in here. Be careful down here getting to the bottom. You notice I went in a little deep, pushing forward, and then when it starts to rip up, I come up, do the angle up a little bit on it to scoop it out so I don't rip all the way out of the end too deep. Although the end I'm not too worried about because it's going to be covered up, but you don't want to get into a habit of that and say get up here and it rip out a chunk over here where you really need it to be in. I'm going to just follow this line in here. This is a bigger U-gouge. We got a V-gouge here. I can get in here. And get a nice clean line in around towards the edge. But right now I'm just clearing a bunch of stock that doesn't need to be there. And I have not decided whether after I get this cut down to where I want it to be, if I'm going to leave just a small ledge around on the edge for the crystal to sit in, and then take the rest of it out to make it hollow in the back so light can pass through and you know, give the crystal a little depth from the back. I may do that. It'll probably make the crystal display better, probably be more pleasing to the eye. See that stop cut kind of working. Come on there, trim that off. And if you make a mistake, it's not the biggest dealing in the world. You can either A, glue the piece back. If you've got the piece, cut it out, glue a different piece of wood in it and repair it. Yeah, you'll see a glue mark or a crack mark or something. And if you're painting, it's not that big of a deal. It's no big deal at all if you're painting solid. See right there, I don't know if you can see that, but I had the cut mark there. I got a little deep and it chipped the corner out, but that's okay. It's still going to work. That may have had to come out anyhow. If not, I'll just make it a nice rounded edge. I'm not going to get upset about it at this point, because this is the point that we call, I think it's called roughing in or roughing out, whatever you want to do, just taking out a lot of area here. And how much we want to take out, you can tell here. This is the back of the piece here. This is the front of the, this is where the board's going to go in here, in this area. So I'm going to have to take out roughly this amount of area right here, thickness on here. So I've got a long ways to go. going against the grain will make a little bit cleaner cut, provided you got a nice sharp chisel. And the sound of it cutting against the grain is a little different than going with the grain. Sometimes you have less tear out if you go cross grain. Going across the grain takes more force, so you really have to be real careful when you get close to the edges, so you don't over bump the handle of the chisel or mallet the handle of the chisel if you're using a mallet. And cause a huge tear out on the other side. If you get going, it takes a lot of force to push the chisel through. And sometimes you'll hit a soft spot of wood and it will just give way. And all of a sudden you're 4 inches across and you're going, oh my God, I really screwed that up. The point of the knife is very thin, very sharp. You don't want to get in there and cut and twist it, because you will bend the tip of the knife or break it. Either way, it's not good, because then you have to repair it, and it's not a fun thing to do. Because number one, it takes a long time, because you can't get it hot with like a grinder. So you've got to basically hand sand it. Or you can use a grinder, you just have to do a little bit, cool it down in water, do a little bit, cool it down in water. But you end up with a smaller knife, and you're probably not going to end up with a profile that you want, because you're not as good as a knife maker that made it. I've worked that, and that's starting to get a little dull. I'm having to start taking a lot more force. You can either touch up your blades one of two ways: hand stropping, then you have to, you can use a dowel for the inside or whatever. I've also got electric machines that I do this with, because I'm a little lazy, and for me they tend to work better. Well, you can almost hear the difference. See how that went across, and just all of a sudden I was way up the wood. On a chisel, you don't want to beat it down in there and then try to wiggle it back and forth, because you'll mess the edge up. However, if it's moving and you scoop lightly without a whole lot of force, it will cause a scoop, and it will not hurt the edge. Now I'm using basswood for this. If you use a harder wood like oak or maple, something of that nature, you're going to want to be a lot more careful because it's a lot harder wood and it's going to destroy your chisels a lot quicker if you should do something like that. Now I've got an inexpensive set of chisels that's decent quality that I will use for those with a mallet, and if I break one, I'm not upset because the whole set was, I don't know, $100, $110 for a set of 12. And for what I paid for them, they're good chisels. They're good for what they are, but they're not good for what I'm doing here in basswood because the angles here are too steep for harder wood. On softer wood, you're going to work the chisel closer to the edge, so you want a more aggressive or a little more less of an angle here. I don't know what you'd call that. Angle of attack, I guess. I don't know. And some of you may ask, well, why am I going across the grain? Because it's so much harder to cut. You have to put more force behind it, which is true. It's because if I hit a soft spot, it's not going to tend to run and chip out as bad as going with the grain. So right about here is the deepest part. So I'm going to try to get all of this fairly even, all the way out to the sides and edges, and see if the crystal will fit in. I think I have to go deeper than that, but it's a good start. It's process. It's like peeling an onion. Take away a small layer at a time. You can always take wood off. You can't always put it back on without a lot of trouble and without changing the look of the piece. A lot of people say, oh, you can't put wood back on. You can, you're just going to have a glue line there and a line where the wood grains don't match up and all of that stuff. If you're painting the piece, it doesn't matter because you will cover it up. However, if you are staining the piece or leaving it natural and putting clear on it, such as polyurethane, you're going to see it and it's going to look bad. And everybody's got different techniques that they use, different ways they hold the chisel, different angles of attack that they like to use. Is any one of them right? Is any one of them wrong? It's like a road map. It doesn't matter as long as you start from point A to point B and you're happy with your journey. That's all that matters. Some people say, oh, you're cheating if you use rotary tools. No, you're not. Now, if you're a purist and that's one thing, that's your opinion. But if you're whittling, I do agree whittling is done with a knife. I'm not whittling, I am carving. Carving can be done with a knife, with the chisels, rotary tools. Start out with band saws, scroll saws, coping saws, whatever you want to get down to where you want to work it. Clean this bottom up a little bit. This chisel could be a little bit sharper. I forgot to tend to it in between the videos. But it's still pretty sharp, as chisels go. It's definitely sharp enough to cut you if you run your finger over the edge. Around here on the edges, we're going to start using smaller chisels. Because we're working in tighter spots. We have to be mindful of the rough out. Get my V-tool up in here for the points. You can see how pointy I can get that with the tool. Sorry, I had to let my dog out in the yard. Get a sip of tea. Up in this area here, you can see how I want that nice and straight in. So that's what I'm working on. You probably can't see it very well from that angle. Might be able to see this side a little bit better. And some people say, what do you do with your wood chips? Well, there's a lot of things you can do with wood chips. If you've got a garden, you can put them out in your garden as compost. You can pour them in egg cartons, add wax or whatever you want to add wax to it, make fire starters out of them. Some people do that. What I do with mine is I save mine. I put them in a bag. And if I do a small wood carving, I've got little fancy mesh bags that I have collected from things that were sent to us that I'll put a carving in. I'll add the wood chips in for packaging, and they make for great packing to protect the carving while it's in transport. Also, when the person opens up the wood thing, takes the carving out, they're like, I've got a little bit of the process. May make them feel better, may not. Just a novelty thing. And then they'll keep them and be like, oh, this is cool, this is part of the project. Or they'll just throw them out. But that's what I do with the wood chips. All right, so that's the end of it for today. Thank you for watching.